Jesus. This is why I'm not on the pod. I can't keep counteracting your stupidity all the time. But damn it, somebody has to do it. I would say I'm like 75% in favor. But that 25%, I don't know, something doesn't sit right with me. I understand the decision. I understand why it was made. I get it. I don't necessarily like what the future holds, based on all of the transfers that we made and the team that we've assembled. All the cash that we've spent was for a specific manager and a style of play. I feel like we're going to be in a similar situation that we were to Tuchel, trying to get people that fit his system that he wanted. And we're going to be having this same type of conversation a year from now. That's the only thing that worries me. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. I can see it kind of happening where, again, you have a manager come into a team that wasn't necessarily assembled for them. You got ins and outs of players, a bunch of stuff like that, players that might not gel with the new manager, blah, blah, blah. I see a same thing kind of repeating itself no matter who is in charge. So I'm hesitant from that perspective. But I understand the decision.
Yemi Baki Yoko, oh yeah, Samina Mina, Edward Mende, Samina Mina Sam Sadate. He comes from Senegal.
And I think going out and get Saul was the top transfer of the market for Chelsea.
Chesney could have been in the shower smoking a cigarette like he was at Arsenal, and we still would not have scored.
My rants have been fueled by Scott. Don't get it twisted.
Big Rom. Man, fuck you.
In Roman we trust, right?
You and me are going to have a battle royale about Jorginho and diving.
The flag stays down!
Welcome to the Flag Stays Down podcast, a podcast where we definitely give it our all. We're missing Matt tonight, although you may have heard him in the intro. Still out on daddy duty. So it's me and Parker tonight. Parker, how you doing?
It's been a weird weekend. It went from sort of seething anger watching the match on Saturday, because what a cluster of a match that was. And I had bad feelings kind of going into it. I said that publicly. I didn't think we were going to win. Hoping I was going to be wrong, praying I was going to be wrong, because my predictions are usually wrong, and I was right, unfortunately, and it was not a good one to watch. Then moving forward into the news that just broke a couple hours prior to us recording, which was Graham Potter era is officially done. It's a weird timing on it, and we'll talk more about that later. But it's kind of a strange end of the season now, because now we've got a little bit of time with an interim manager. I don't know if we bring someone in immediately. I don't know if we bring someone in over summer. I don't know what this means for the Champions League. There's a lot of like question marks now, and my expectations are sort of at an all-time low too, because I don't know what to expect for the rest of the season anymore. So I tell you, man, after doing this podcast, you realize like how much Chelsea plays. You realize how many matches in and out, how long the season takes, sort of like week to week, when you kind of cover it like this. And this season has been draining for me. This season has been taxing for me, and I'm ready to kind of close the book on this season and just sort of be done, get a new guy in, and find someone to back, and I can hitch my wagon to. But how do you feel after everything that's happened?
That seems to be the consensus, that this season seems to have taken 3 seasons. Like, it's still going. It just, I remember, what was it, 15, 16, where we finished 10th. I remember that season feeling like it took forever, but not like this. This has been something special. And I feel like it's just piggybacking on the shit show that was the end of last season. But no, you hit the nail on the head. It was a roller coaster this weekend. We talked about in our group chat during the game that it was almost painful to watch at times. I almost had it on as background noise in the last 20 minutes. I would say, walking on the treadmill, I was more interested scrolling Chelsea Twitter, just looking at the reactions there, because it was more entertaining than what Chelsea were doing. And then I woke up this morning, and I've mentioned this story a few times, but when Tuchel was sacked, I had a feeling Tuchel was going to be sacked. I was the first on this pod to call that out. One of the few things I'm right about. But I remember waking up in the morning, downstairs, taking a piss, and scrolling through Twitter. Apparently, I have a Twitter problem, I think. But scrolling through Twitter, and there it is. Potter got sacked. Or not Potter, Tuchel. Oh, too many managers. So I woke up this morning. I was like, oh, he's for sure getting sacked. So I go downstairs and I'm doing my morning business, and I don't see anything on it. In fact, I'm seeing the ownership is all on board. They want to give him more time. And then it went from angry yesterday to sad this morning. And then this afternoon, it was relief. Not even I wasn't even joyous. It was just relief. We posted on the podcast Twitter, the ding dong, the witch is dead kind of thing. And that's kind of how it felt, where it's like, oh, it's over. We can live our lives again. But we'll see what that entails. I know Matt pre-pod was not as relieved, I would say, as at least I am.
Not as relieved is a good way of saying it. I think Matt just understands that it's not a fix-all. And I know you can get new manager bumps and whatnot out of it, but it doesn't fix all of the problems. We've had now 3 managers in a row, really, where we've had problems scoring goals and problems finishing in front of the net. And that doesn't fix overnight with a new mentality or a new regime sort of in there. And we learned that the hard way with Potter. And I think the biggest thing about Potter that we learned was he just wasn't the right guy for the job. He just wasn't up for it. His tactics, his thought process, his way of communicating internally, externally, I mean, you kind of name it. It just didn't work and gel with the team. And we gave it, I think a lot of fans gave it a decent runway or a decent thought process. I saw throughout the entire thing, like, Roman would have sacked him by now, and just the old regime would have torched him way earlier. I thought he had a fair runway, and you just didn't see that improvement. There was nothing I could like hang my hat on, except for the Bayern game. I'm sorry, not the Bayern game. I got Tuchel on my mind now because of you, Collins. Thanks a lot. The Dortmund game, that match at home, that was the one true highlight I saw out of it. And I think you can just, if you point to one highlight for Graham Potter, it's that match. Outside of that, I mean, he managed a lot more matches than just that one. There aren't too many highlights. There aren't too many like bright spots you can point to and really great moments. The only other one I can think of off the top of my head is the Conor Gallagher late winner against Crystal Palace. That was a moment. More about Conor playing against his old team, right? Less about Potter. But that's one moment where we pulled something out of our hats. There weren't a lot of that this year. There was a lot more concessions late to drop points or to lose matches than there were the other way around. It's been a grind. I'm happy it's over. But I also do acknowledge what Matt said, which was we still have problems. We still have a big squad. We still have a lot to figure out. We still have a question mark over who's going to manage this team and how well does that fit into what the hell our plans are long term.
I think honestly, I'm not so much worried about those things. I'm worried about, will this manager be the right fit for the group that's assembled? In terms of, you still got Deadwood and you still got a large squad, like that's gonna be taken care of in summer. Like you can't maintain a 34-person squad. So you're gonna have the likes of probably Pulisic, Ziyech, Ziyech for sure. But there's talks of Mason Mount going, there's talks of Chilwell possibly going. There are big names, and then you've also got some of these small names. Ruben Loftus-Cheek rumored to be going. Zakaria might be just going back to Juve. João Felix might just be going back to Atletico. So the squad is going to be trimmed down. I don't foresee that being an issue. That's also going to alleviate some of the anger, I think, in the squad. There were a lot of reports today of parts of the locker room being pissed at Potter. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, every match day he has to tell 20 guys that they're not starting. That's a big number. So of course you're gonna have people mad. So I guess my kind of reassurance in all this is that just like Tuchel was hired before Bowley came in, and so we all worried, would Bowley bring in his guy, right? And that happened. Bowley brought in his guy before he brought in the front office, if you want to call it that. Vivell, Winstanley, his think tank, his directors of football. And I said it a couple months ago, how long until they decide, hey, this is not the guy who fits what we are trying to build? And that's absolutely within their right, as basically to Americanize it, the general managers of the club. They have the right to pick the coach to fit what they're trying to build. So as long as that group is not changing, which there's no way in hell that it is. These guys were just brought in a couple months ago. They've brought in fantastic talent across the squad. So if they are bringing in their guy, and especially one that maybe they've worked with before in the past, that they know can fit this, now I have faith in the process. Now I see the process is being built. And I think that was part of the issue with Potter, is that you couldn't see that the process was progressing.
Lack of progress. That's really all it was. We were trying so hard to find something to just kind of like to glom onto. And I echo a lot of what you say. I think the guys that got brought in, did so for a reason. I think I think a lot of people think that the fans of Chelsea or the talking heads of Chelsea are can control some of this, and to an extent I believe that, but I also believe that if they listened to us, then Potter would have been fired literally 6 months ago. So I don't think that we have all the say in the world. I know that there was a couple of comments that got made. I think it was Bowley who said, like, I didn't realize the vitriol that the fans would bring to the table into not buying in. I think fans are happy to buy in. I think fans want to buy in. I think fans look for stuff to buy into, but ultimately you have to get results. If you get results and you see progress and you see things on the pitch, like there just wasn't enough positives. There wasn't enough things. And this match, and so I talk a lot to non-soccer fans or pseudo soccer fans or fans of the MLS, or like my younger brother Connor doesn't follow Premier League as closely, so he'll ask like, hey, what's going on with Chelsea, and I'll kind of give him the full rundown. And I'm like, dude, not only did we lose 2-0 to Villa, we got outplayed by Villa. We should have lost to Villa. We created almost nothing, and Villa took their chances so much better than we ever could have. Villa deserved to beat us, and that's something that's so unacceptable, right? Like I can live with like getting unlucky every once in a while, because that happens. It's sports. It just, sometimes it's not your day, but to really look like you physically got outplayed, mentally got outplayed, got out coached, got out substituted, everything, like every facet of that game we lost. And there are so like, and this is so true when we do like man of the match like thoughts for Chelsea. I was like, I don't know, Conte, because I was happy to see him back. Like I was happy with what Joao Felix did, sort of. Aside from that, I'm grasping at straws, right? Like, so I have so little like positives. Ben Chilwell was fine too, right? But I have so little positives. I'm like, Kovacic was garbage. Reece James didn't play a good game. Kepa was garbage. Our back three were terrible, 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 terrible. Mudryk did nothing and took a one-on-one chance right at the keeper. Like, there's a lot of bad, and I'm not singling any one player out. There's a lot of bad. My whole point is when you have nothing to like grasp for a positive, it's really hard to be excited as a fan. I'm sort of known for taking positives out of matches, even win, draw, loss, whatever. Taking the positives out of it and kind of rolling forward. And I had none of them. So I need something. The fan base needs some fuel to keep us excited, and we just had none of that.
And I think I think the Villa match almost like encapsulates Graham Potter's time at Chelsea, because like you said, he got out tacticked, he got out lineupped, he got out subbed. We got out a lot of things, but similar to what has happened for a lot of his tenure, our XG was great and the opponent's XG was not. We're the statistical champions of England.
Ooh, and the boys gave it their all.
Oh my God!
Come on, you gotta love that though, Collins. The boys gave it their all. Come on.
I was joking in the group chat when we were talking about, oh man, what's Potter gonna say post match? And I said the boys gave it their all. And what do we see 20 minutes later? The boys gave it their all. Oh my God, are you kidding me? Read the room, man. You can't be like, if the boys gave it their all in all the matches that he said they did, we would not be in the position that we are. And just a quick little breakdown here. CFC Daily put out a great tweet. Under Graham Potter, we had one win against the current top 10, which was against Villa, who at the time was managed by Stevie G. Had 0 wins against the top 8. 2 wins in 8 games against other London teams, both of those wins against Palace. 3 away wins. 64 changes to the team in 15 games. 28 points in 22 games. Knocked out of the FA Cup and League Cup in the 3rd round since the first time since 1983. 21 goals scored in 22 matches. Goal differential of 0. And 4 points taken from a possible 9 against the bottom 3. I understand that people are hesitant. I understand that people want to trust the process and all that, but you can't argue against any of that. That is not, regardless of what club you're at, unless you're at a relegation club, none of that is acceptable. None of it.
Bad.
He deserves to go.
It's bad at any level. In the Premier League, those are bad numbers. And the only argument you could like have if he to keep him would be if he saved his club from relegation with those numbers. Like, but man, those are horrible. I mean, it's not Chelsea. It's not even close to Chelsea. It's so far away from like the standard that we've built up over the last 20 years. It's just pitiful.
We have 38 points currently. 10 of those were Thomas Tuchel in the first 6 games of the year. Not great. But getting back to the match itself, because the match definitely is like, oh man, this is all of Tuchelism here. Or not Tuchel. Oh my God, I'm going to keep making this mistake all pod. Potterism, Potterball. I think the biggest thing that caught people off guard, and I'm reading now that it caught ownership and the think tank off guard, were the tactics. where you had at the end of the game, I'll get to the big one in a minute here, but at the end of the game, you had Pulisic and Madueke as your wing backs. To start the game, you had Cucurella and Reece James at center back in a back three. Oh, by the way, they also had Trev and Benoit Badiashile on the bench. So you have two non-center backs playing center back in a back three, and you have two center backs sitting on your bench. I understand, Parker, you explained to me before the pod here that Benoit wasn't ready to go. But then why put him on the bench?
I don't know if he was. I said he might not, because I think there was something in the France match that he may have picked up, or hammy may have been tight. But again, to the point, it's if he's not ready to go, if he can't get subbed on, then he shouldn't take up a bench spot. Then it's dumb to have him be available and throw someone else out there.
And I think we saw during the match that just what a terrible play this was with that back three. At worst, man, just go back to the 4-3-3 for a match, because we saw miscommunications all across that back three, and especially on Ollie Watkins' goal. You had Koulibaly doing a poor job tracking him, and then you had Cucurella cut across the field to make that header. Koulibaly could have called him off. Cucurella could have said, "Hey, I got this." And then you had Kepa coming out of goal. If it's covered, why is Kepa coming out of goal? Like there was no communication back there whatsoever. And then going forward, at points we had 3, possibly 4 out of our defenders, out of our 5 defenders, up in the opponent's third, leaving usually Cucurella or Koulibaly back there by themselves. It's a recipe for disaster. What are you thinking? I don't understand what he was doing. And if that's, I can't even say that that's Potter ball, because I haven't seen a consistent system through. I've just seen a lot of what looks like scatterbrained efforts at, like, maybe if I try this, like tinkering. I've seen a lot of that. I think tinkering is Potter ball, but I'm not a fan.
I think you get to be a fan when you see it works, right? Like tinkering for the sake of tinkering, I think clearly doesn't. And the amount of like misplayed balls where people weren't expecting it, or people had to track back for it, or was just like, I started counting them, and I was just like, these guys aren't on the same page clearly. And it was from the opening kick that they weren't. And so you could just really tell that the energy was weird about it. When we got forward, it was weird. Everything dies when it goes to Ruben Loftus-Cheek. If you go down the right side and you have him in advanced places, everything dies when it goes to him, and he does not produce the quality that's needed. And that's where I'm, bashing my head into a wall of saying, why isn't Noni Madueke there? Because I want him running forward, not a Ruben Loftus-Cheek. And I know that it's not the exact same position, but I just want good guys going forward, not Loftus-Cheek. And I'd rather see him stay back and defend and kind of deal with technical space more so than that. And Reece James not playing there just kind of bothers me, because Reece is great in that position. So it's just like, it's all backwards. It's all bad. Does anyone know what Mudryk played on Saturday? Like what position he played? Because he kind of popped up in a couple of different areas, but didn't really do anything. I just, we've got like 4 or 5 like floaters, and they just kind of like go with the flow with it. And I just don't know if that's what's going to work. I think like maybe potentially down the road it could work, but that's sort of optimistic thinking. And it's just not, it wasn't cohesive at all. And you could see that it wasn't like thought through, and it hasn't been practiced, it hasn't been drilled in, and it just seemed like it was a rough draft of a plan.
Well, and then you've got, first of all, kudos to you for Ruben Loftus-Cheek, because I completely forgot that he even played in the match.
Horrible.
Yeah, terrible. You got Reece James, the best right wing back in the world, playing center back, and you throw utility Swiss Army knife Ruben Loftus-Cheek at right wing back. But like you said, we've got 4 or 5 floaters sitting at the top of the attack. and it's like playing with two left hands or two left feet in this case. You've got guys that need like a central striker to play off of. In fact, you've got 4 guys like that who need a central striker to play off of. And yet he has frozen out the main number 9 in the club. And I don't know enough about the Aubameyang situation. I know that he has struggled at Chelsea. I know that he's talked about wanting to go back to Barcelona. But maybe there's more to that. I don't know. I don't know what his relationship is with Potter, but you think maybe a solid number 9 could contribute with all these guys. And even if you don't want to go that route, why did we sign David Datro Fofana? Give him some minutes. What is he up to? He is a solid, bulky, and fast number 9. We've seen him play hold up. We've seen him come back and help defend. Let the other guys play off of him. Let him be a Josie Altidore for all I care. I don't care. But just something. And I feel like we're just hammering home this point of there's no system. There was no system under Potter.
And if we had like DD Fofana going week in, week out, we could see like the progress and seeing like, different things kind of come from it. I think the problem is, one of the biggest problems was we had a bit of success, and then we had to like try to stick to that game plan. We beat Leeds, we beat Dortmund, we beat someone else. He won 3 matches in March or whatever, and Drew won. It's his best month ever. And and then it starts to feel like a blueprint. But then we have a crowded April. We talked about this last week, Collins, where we've got 9 matches this April. So you can't keep doing just the same thing anymore. And now it feels like the layer of complexity that he didn't have to deal with at Brighton, where now you have personalities, egos, teams, tactics, press, fans, pressure, ownership. I mean, the list goes on, right? Like, everyone's in your ear telling you what to do, kind of a thing. And I don't think he knows what the right answer is. And that's what like I love about a Jose Mourinho is Jose Mourinho thinks he's the smartest man in the room, no matter what room he's in. And he has an identity and he has a plan. Whether he thinks or whether you think he's right or not, he doesn't give a shit. He believes in his plan. He believes in what he's going to do because he's a great manager, and that's what he is paid to do. He says, I am the manager. This is what I do. And I think Potter has too many people in his ears saying, hey, have you thought about this? Hey, have you considered that? Hey, you might need to do this. And doesn't have the chops to deal with all of the voices in the room. And granted, not many are at Chelsea. It's a hard job. I get it. I understand that it's not the easiest gig to take on, but that doesn't mean that you stick with a problem long past its expiration date. I think the move was right. I'm with you, Collins. We'll backtrack a little bit. I thought the move was coming this morning. I thought I was going to wake up to the club statement. I thought it was happening. I was very surprised when it didn't, but that's what happens when you have an American on LA time instead of London time. So I think the club now has a chance to breathe for a second. We obviously have a big match a week from Wednesday or Tuesday, I can't remember, with the Madrid match. I think it's a week from Tuesday. And so we've got a couple matches before that, but really the season is going to come down to what we can do in the Champions League. So let's just go right into that. What do you think the expectations are for the Champions League for the remainder of that contest?
Well, first of all, it was reported today, Jacob Steinberg, the reporter out of England there, reporting that the club feel that they have a better chance against Real Madrid with Bruno Saltor as the interim manager than with Graham Potter as the manager. Which is a damning statement in and of itself. I don't know. I'm like you said earlier, like I'm ready for this season to be just done and over. Like, I would love just for the stories, because we have a podcast, we're creators. I would love to face Bayern in the semifinals. I would love to see Tuchel against Nagelsmann. Like, all the storylines would be fantastic. But at the same time, I don't want to get my hopes up. It's Real Madrid. This is their tournament. The Champions League is absolutely Madrid's tournament, and I don't know. There's too many issues. Too many issues for this club to get through in the next week. Considering, by the way, we play Liverpool in 2 days, and then we have a match against Wolves over the weekend, which is always tough. So, I don't know. Do your best. To quote the great Tony Horton, do your best. Forget the rest.
Nice P90X reference there. It's complete toss up, and the thing that I hate is that we have hope. I hate that we have hope, because this team has shown that in a knockout scenario or a 1-game scenario, they can play and they can score. And gosh, I was reminded today of our goal of the month in March, which was that glorious flick to Kai over the top, and Kai, chips the keeper. Do you remember? Do you remember that goal? That Enzo pass to Kai, and everyone thought he was offside. Even Kai thought he was offside. No one celebrated it. It was at the death of halftime. I think it was in the 45th minute. You see what the team can produce. You see some of the magic that can happen, and we still have a squad, man. We're not lacking in talent on the pitch. And so I'm very measured in my expectations for what happens, because again, doesn't fix overnight. We have a lot of problems. There's a lot of shit to work through in the coming months leading up to next August for the season start. But at the same time, I'm optimistic that, can the team put together a match? Like, yeah. Can they put together a string of matches? Yeah, they can. If there's someone that comes in that can help sort of solidify that squad and just kind of come in, even if it's an interim manager and it's not, it's the who was the interim manager that won the Champions League? I'm blanking out. I'm sorry.
Di Matteo.
Thank you. Even someone who isn't expected to carry on, sometimes that can help, right? Sometimes in corporations, you have to like hire someone to just kind of clean house and be someone who can command people to do what they want, knowing that they're not going to be long term, and they can just kind of say what they have to say and not worry about the politics of it. It can be a refreshing take on things, and so having an assistant just step in for the last 10 games, hey, stranger things have happened in the world of soccer. That's all I gotta say.
Well, courtesy of TalkSport, Todd Bowley believes Chelsea can win the Champions League, and an insider has said that the situation changed after he talked with Potter today about the Champions League. So the Todd father's got faith. Yeah, I mean, we've seen an underdog Chelsea win the Champions League before. So I don't know. I think I'm just going to sit this one out and just kind of enjoy the ride. I don't want to put any expectations on this team, because I've already been so disappointed too many times this year. Like I hate to sound so defeated on this podcast, especially on such a joyous day, but it is what it is, man. I'm over it.
Let me meet you halfway, because I think I can. I think if we can beat Madrid at home, whether or not we win the aggregate, bigger sort of match, if we can outscore Madrid at home, I think that's a win. I don't mean to set expectations really low, but I think it's going to be a hard match. It's going to be a hard aggregate to beat Madrid on. It really is. If there's a way that they pull it off, I think it's going to be massive. I think it's going to be monumental, and that's the sort of like confidence that you could see Chelsea riding out to then beating whoever's next, if it's Bayern or if it's City. But I to get from here to there is a really, it's asking a lot. It's really a big jump. So I hope that we can take some positives from it. And that's what the way I'm kind of evaluating the rest of the season. I want to see positives. I want to see improvements. I want to see some of the guys that I want to see out there. I want to see more Noni Madueke. I don't know if I want to see more or less of Mudryk at this stage. I'm still very unsold on him today. And I think he's a diamond in the rough, but I don't know if that fits what Chelsea wants to do long term, just because we're not great at developing talent with the size of squad. And I think that's great for like early round FA Cup stuff, but not where we are in the season kind of stuff. And so I want to see consistency. I want to see stout defense where we don't concede goals. And I want to see, clear chances, domination, and a lot of positives that come from matches. One of the biggest things that happened out of like the Leeds match and the Dortmund match is we dominated possession, we created goal scoring chances, and when we conceded possession, we won it back. We didn't give up a lot of counterattacks. We didn't give up a lot of chances out of counterattacks, and our defense really stepped up, and our midfield bossed the shit out of people. That's what was like night and day different when watching the Villa match versus when watching the Dortmund match. Is our midfield stepped up and took people to it, and we won balls back quickly and a lot. So we gotta reinstate that dominance, and I want to see progress towards doing that.
Yeah, I think progress, just like we said on Potter, progress is key. We have to see that now. If we don't, then I think you have, I don't want to say institutional issues, but we're getting there. Yeah. So speaking of that, I have seen a little bit today, and not just today, over the last couple of weeks. How culpable is Todd Bowley in this season? I've seen there's the extremes with everything. There's people, saying Todd Bowley's the worst owner we've ever had. He's turning us into the Glazers on, United under the Glazers. You got people supporting him, you got people in the middle. I don't put a lot of blame on Todd Bowley. I think he has done enough to justify like our trust in him. Was Potter a poor choice? Probably, yes. Looking back on it now. At the time, I can see the reasons why. I can see why Tuchel was let go. Does it look terrible in hindsight? Yes. Yes, it does. But I can see why he was let go. I can see the reasons why Potter was hired. And then he's splashed almost $1 billion to kind of revamp this squad. It doesn't look like he's turning us into a United under the Glazers. I don't see that comparison. But I'm not ready to crucify the man. I'm not ready to call for Roman to come back. I think he made a mistake, and this is him owning up to it. He didn't give Potter, into next season like we had originally heard. And so I think this was a positive from the owner.
Yeah, I think managers of teams, I think CEOs, they get judged on the situations that they sort of fall into. Some of it's their fault, some of it they're not, a fault for, because a lot of it can be circumstantial. And I think Todd is someone who's tried to do the best he can with the information that he has in front of him. I agree with you. I saw a lot of the reasons why Potter was brought in. And I think, if we look back on this 5 years from now, I think it'll even be more clear why Potter was brought in, because I think he is good. I think he does have that sort of, we talked a lot about like the psychology nature of dealing with people, dealing with squads. I just think it was a little bit too much for him. I think it was not the correct situation for him. And in Chelsea, sometimes margins are thin, And that little bit difference can make or break you. And unfortunately, it broke him, and it's sad to see, but it's business, right? So you can't be sad about it. It's not the end of the world. I think what would have been worse for Todd is had he seen it out into the preseason like he kind of said he would have, and we still don't have that improvement. We still don't have that that hindsight on it, and that time with the squad, and then it still isn't working, and so now you scrap it at that point, and now you have a brand new manager, and so it's failed at either time. I mean, this is a sunk cost fallacy, right? If you realize that it's dead, then shoot it and be dead with it. And I think that's what he did, and he owned up to it, and it's time to move on as a club. And so, sure, is he not a man of his word because of that? Yeah, but I'm okay with it. I don't think he's done much wrong in this whole situation. I think he has listened to the fans. I think he's listened to the ownership. I think he's listened to the people that he trusts, also thinking about what's best for the club long term, and makes those decisions. And those aren't easy decisions. They're very tough, and they're calculated. And I think a lot more goes into it than even you and I think about on a daily basis. But yeah, he had to pull the trigger at some point, and he did, and so be it. And now we move forward.
So looking forward, then, we may not have a permanent manager through the end of this season, depending on who's the number one choice here. But there has been a short list released. Julian Nagelsmann, shocking, on that list. Luis Enrique, former Spanish national team and Barca manager. Pochettino, yeah, we had a little debate about that pre-pod. Ruben Amorim from Sporting Portugal. And then we did have a couple other suggestions from some of our followers on Twitter. Jose Mourinho, I've seen that floated by fans, not so much by verified reports. Emma Hayes, the other one, courtesy of Salt Lake Blues. Parker, who is your ideal long-term manager at Chelsea?
Ideal long-term manager is such a weird statement to make. I'm just going to go ahead and give the shout out to Emma Hayes because I love Emma Hayes. I do love the way she talks to her team, the way she embodies Chelsea, the way she thinks about Chelsea as a club, the history, the future, everything about her. I love. So I'll give her a quick shout out. Do I think she's the right manager for the men's team? Probably not. It's completely different animal. It's just very different, and so I don't know if that transition makes its way over. The thing that makes me scratch my head the most is I don't know if this decision happens if Nagelsmann is let go. I don't know if Chelsea fire Potter unless Nagelman is let go. So I'm curious if this actually does happen and those dominoes didn't fall a week before, because we talked about this. I didn't know who that leader would be, and Luis Enrique I know has been talked about as well. Pochettino has been talked about. Zidane's been talked about. Mourinho has been talked about. A couple others. No one feels like the front runner, and so when you don't have a front runner, it feels like they're all kind of tied for last, in my opinion. So Nagelsmann feels like the linchpin in all of this. It feels like eyes opened up when he got let go and he was available, and now it's like, okay, I think we have our guy. And so I think that's what helps make this decision. It's like it's hard to fire someone when there's no clear replacement in sight, and now that there is, I think it makes it a lot easier. So I don't know a ton about Nagelsmann's style. I know he was really successful in his stint at Bayern, especially this season. I know he's a young up and coming manager. I heard stories of him sort of losing some of the locker room at Bayern, which doesn't bode well coming from a sort of toxic locker room at Chelsea. So that worries me. That's my biggest worry is you got a lot of personalities, you got a lot of things to deal with at Chelsea, and I sort of gravitate towards more proven than I do more up and coming. But I see all the positives in Nagelsmann. You see some of the similarities in Graham Potter with taking teams past what they were kind of meant to do, and then Nagelsmann has the obvious caveat where he got to do it at Bayern and do it at a bigger stage and do it with one of the best clubs in the world, really. So he's the front runner to me. If they signed him tomorrow, I wouldn't be sad about it at all. Everyone else has question marks around it for me. So would I be okay with them? Like, to a degree. But Nagelsmann has the least amount of question marks, so that's where I'll end my rant. That's that's the person that I'd be most comfortable with long term.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point about if Nagelsmann isn't sacked by Bayern, does any of this happen? We've been rumored to be, Pochettino's been on a short list apparently for a long, long time. Luis Enrique has been on a short list for a very long, long time. And then the week after, Nagelsmann gets sacked. That being said, had we won, I don't know. I think there's multiple factors in there, but it's it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see, as things kind of develop here, if that was the case. There were talks that Christopher Vivell has been in contact with Nagelsmann and has been looking for potential replacements since January, which is also very interesting, also very telling. But to counter your point, I don't know. There's a couple different Red Bull coaches that Vivell has worked with that have hit the market and are either available now or could have been available that we've passed on. Hassan Hudel, I believe, is out of a job at the moment. Ralph Ragnick is only advising at the moment. Jesse Marsh recently. Oh man, if we had hired Jesse Marsh, that would have been a train wreck. Just a media train wreck.
Yep.
But anyways, there's been a couple Red Bull system managers who have come and gone. So I like the idea that, if Nagelsmann is the guy, that all of these guys have worked together at some point. Win Stanley included in there. Lawrence Stewart was also part of the Red Bull hierarchy. Like, all these guys know the system. And that's why I was reassuring Matt pre-pod that if Nagelsmann is the guy, it's not so much crazy turbulence like, oh, now we have to rebuild a squad based around, like, no, these guys have already been building a squad. It's been very well talked about that Bowley likes the Red Bull system, that he wants to emulate the Red Bull system. And that's what we've been building here, bringing all the best young talent that fits the system. You want, the Cobham is all playing the same way. Wants the multi-club model where everybody's playing the same way. And so if you bring in a guy from that system to manage, then perfect. Like, then you have your process, right? Process can then commence. But, at the same time, Nagelsmann apparently doesn't want to start a new job until the beginning of next season. So do you put an interim manager in charge for 10 games and then, let Nagelsmann figure it out until summer? Or do you hire somebody now and say, hey, your preseason is now? You've got 10 games plus the summer, and then next season you come out firing. I don't know what the best approach is. I would say I'm like 75% on board with Nagelsmann, just because then you've got the continuity. German coaches love their discipline, and that's something that Chelsea have been lacking. German coaches love the press. which is something that I would love to see at Chelsea. We're like the only club that doesn't do it, and I don't understand it, or we don't do it well. But get somebody to kind of, ingrain that. And then, he had a bit of a falling out with Bayern, but Bayern right now is very much like 2011, 2012, 2013 Chelsea, where it's very, very player driven. Chelsea has been player driven since, but not the likes of 10 years ago, where you had Terry and Lampard and Drogba and Cech and all of these guys. It was very ego driven. That's how Bayern is now. You look at the people who were not fans of Nagelsmann, then Manuel Neuer comes to mind, number one. Like, been the German national keeper for a long time. He's been the face of Bayern in terms of keeping, one of the faces of Bayern for a long time. What he says carries a lot of weight. You piss him off, you're not going to last long. So I'm not so much worried about that, especially in a young club here. Like, if you come in and you piss off Thiago Silva, like, you must have really did something wrong, because Thiago Silva has been through a lot of shit here. But the fact that he has then coached managed at a big club and dealt with the stress of working in a major market, working in one of the biggest clubs in your country, working with all those egos, coached in the Champions League before, which famously Potter had not. I see a lot of positives there. So, long story short, I would be okay with Nagelsmann coming in. He would be my lead. I like the Emma Hayes shout, but I think she's going to want to win the Champions League with the women's team. It's the only thing she hasn't won. If she wins that this year, I don't know. Maybe you at least give her an interview. I would like it.
She's hard not to like. She's really hard not to like, because she's just like tough grit, no bullshit, just like hard nosed. Everything about her I love. I just and I prefer managers like that. I don't like arm around you managers. I like no bullshit managers. Like, every day is a job interview, and you come to play and you come to work, and if you don't work your ass off, like, don't care who you are, don't care how much you cost, you're not playing. Like, that's the style I like more than anything. So she embodies that to a T. So I love that. Again, don't know if that translates as well to the men, just because it is different. You have different styles of people and different styles of players, different egos, and a lot of differences. So, but yeah, I'm excited for what happens. I think in my ideal, you would get him in, like, get Nagelsmann in today and give him just like a little bit of like figuring out who's who and what's what and who's on first, kind of a thought process of like, these games don't mean a ton, but they mean something. So, like, here's some like working trials of real games, then get a preseason to figure some stuff out. Doesn't sound like that's happening, and so I'm okay with an interim until then, and then hopefully we sign them or bring them in like mid-May, right when the season ends, and then go to work from there. But if that's the kind of concession, I'm okay with it. I just I think I'd rather prefer someone come in today and just get their feet wet.
Well, Parker, outside of Potter getting sacked, we probably had a whole nother pod worth of stuff that happened this week. So let's just real quick, gun to your head. We'll go off our polls for the week here.
Let's do it.
So first of all, news about stadium redevelopment. Parker, what do you want? Stamford Bridge or Earl's Court?
Earl's Court. It gives us Stamford Bridge for 4 years while something else gets developed. I understand that might not be the case. There may or may not be in talks with Earl's Court about the redevelopment. But I think it gives us the best of most worlds, which is you get to play at your home stadium for 4 years while a different stadium gets redeveloped. Your new stadium is less than a mile down the road.
I will counter you there. I'm going Stamford Bridge because I think that takes away the power from the pitch owners, takes away the power of the fan. We're not a league that has fan ownership.
Only my answer is caveated only if the pitch owners get to transfer to Rose Court.
Perfect. Because then I think
that
that would open up the likes of, oh, Red Bull Chelsea kind of thing. Like all of a sudden we are corporate owned, the stadium is corporate owned, and the fans don't have a say. So I appreciate your caveat there. But keep Stamford Bridge till I get a chance to go there.
we're going.
All right. Second topic. What do you make out of Kai Havertz's statement this week about possibly going to Bayern Munich? Would you equate it to Rom's interview about Enter, or just kind of taken out of context?
I think it was taken out of context. I think most of the interview was great. I think he tried to be fair on both sides, and I think the one statement gets taken out of context as if he wants to leave and he wants to follow and stuff like that. I thought Kai did a good job with the interview. It's also just not the same. The Rom interview came out of left field. It came with Italian reporters, and he wasn't happy, and it all reeked of him trying to like have an agenda to get out. I didn't get that same sense from Kai. It feels like Kai is more reluctant to talk to the press than he wants to get his thoughts out there. I think the press sort of approached him and wanted to do an interview and tried to like coerce him into doing an interview for it. And I thought he tried to answer the question as fairly as possible. That's my take. That's my 2 cents.
Wholeheartedly agree. And at the end of the day, guy's got 1.5 years left on his contract. So, if he wants to start looking forward, I'm all right with it, as opposed to Rom, who just signed a 5-year contract prior to that.
Bingo.
All right, moving on. Reece James got a haircut. Enzo also bleached his hair. Who's got better Chelsea hair, Enzo or Reece?
Neither. I'll say Enzo just because Enzo looks better with the bleach, and I think he's had more bleach in his life than Reece does. The Reece took me by surprise, and I didn't love it.
I forgot who it was, but someone posted the picture of Justin Timberlake in the early 2000s with like the ramen noodle hair, and that's exactly what Reece James looks like.
Bye.
All right. Then we'll get into the 2 most important polls, because we talked a whole lot about the game today. Man of the match and man to get the fuck out of here. You can catch these polls after every match on our Twitter at FlagDownPod. Kind of a joke this week, but we'll go through them anyways. So your classic man of the match poll. Parker, who is your positive out of this? Ben Chilwell, N'Golo Kante, other, or go fuck yourself?
I preluded to this. I mentioned it was Conte, just the fact that I got to see him out there in a Chelsea uniform and go after balls and be active. Conte was my high point of a really terrible match.
Yeah, I liked seeing Conte, although again, I had it on as background noise when he was on at that point. So I saw him running around. I didn't really pay much attention to it. So I'm going to go Chilwell, because he had that fuck it, I'm going to do it myself attitude. And that was fantastic to see. So he was my man of the match. Also the voter man of the match with 58%. Go fuck yourself second at 37, other at 5, and then Conte received 0 votes. So
Sweet.
Clearly you did not vote in that, Parker.
Or I changed my mind. Either way.
All right. Turning to our man to get the fuck out of here poll. This is our most voted on poll of the season for man to get the fuck out of here. Worst part of the match. You got 4 options here. The manager's lineup, the manager's tactics, the manager, or the referee.
I'm going to go with lineup. There was more than one head scratching moment with that lineup. And then it just got like, it completely got put on blast when Pulisic and Madueke are your wingbacks. And I'm just like, God, like I already knew we weren't drawing that match when they scored their second goal. And I think it was in like the 55th minute or something when they scored their goal. I don't remember. already knew it was done, right? Everyone knew that the game was over at that point. And then to do that, you're just like, whatever. Fuck you. Like, garbage.
Yeah, I voted Potter because oh man, at that point I was ready to stop watching Chelsea for the season. He was your winner. I mean, if you add up his lineup tactics and him, it's 86% of the vote. Referee getting 13%. So we did have honorable mention to the game day bucket go boom gif from our boy Hector at Milwaukee Blues. Well, I'll think about it, Hector. I'll put it that way. I'll think about it. I know Parker's also on board with that leaving. So, Parker, that gets us actually right on the hour here. So, any closing thoughts from you?
Closing thoughts. It's a new chapter, and we've had a couple of chapters on this pod, and these feel like monumental moments. You asked earlier if this is an emergency pod or not, and it's like, well, it's Sunday night, so it's not technically emergency because it's regularly scheduled. But it's a new chapter for us, and I unfortunately one to forget and one to kind of put past us. It's the first chapter of the Bully era, and I think it'll be remembered as that. And I think we'll move past it. We'll move forward. I think the club DNA is still the same. I think it's a winning club. I think it's a winning DNA. I think it's a lot of people in the club, out of the club, community wise, that are passionate towards it. And so I think we're going to get it right at some point. But it's a process. It's tough to figure out. It's not super easy, and we've got a lot of moving pieces with it. So my closing thoughts are: I still remain optimistic for the next coming seasons, and I will double down on my statement that I made last week. I'll make again. We're getting you Stamford Bridge. We're going. I'm speaking it into existence. We are going.
I like it. All right. Well, let me pay some bills here before we sign off. We were on Twitch 2 straight weeks. We're on Twitch. So if you want to join us live, pour a drink. Oh man, next week is Easter, which means I can start drinking on this pod again. I ordered a beer and a shot at a bar today and realized I couldn't drink, so I didn't drink them. Yeah, that's a waste of $6. But join us most Sundays, probably not next Sunday, but most Sundays on Twitch. Just give us a follow at Flag Down Pod. If you like the podcast version better, or you can't make it on Sunday evenings, you can catch us wherever you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Google. All that we ask is that you please subscribe, rate, and review, because we are giving it our best every single pod. If you want to follow us on social media, the pod itself is on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Again, at Flag Down Pod. You can find me on Twitter. I'm Andy. You can find me at Comiskey North. Parker's at DJ Parkour. Matt is not a part of this pod for a moment, so Andy's still Twitter suspended, so don't bother with him. But that's all I've got. So Parker, let's again, I'm not drinking, but if you want to take a drink to chapter 2 of the Bully era.
Chapter 2, baby. Let's get it. I'm all potted out.